We will now have some concluding remarks by the Honorable Abdul Hameed, who is the Consul General of Pakistan in Toronto.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. It has been a very impressive conversation today. Dr. Bangash highlighted the roots of Kashmir disputes in the beginning, how Gurdaspur was given to India to ensure the access of India to Kashmir. Then India took the issue to the United Nations, but refused to implement United Nations Security Council resolutions in spite of serious commitments made by an Indian leader like Nehru. The excellent presentation by Sister Shagufta focused on changes in demographic structure of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, how it will influence the politics in Jammu, registration of voters, purchase of land, educational institutions and professional institutions. It was so revealing. The personal observations on the situation in Kashmir by Faradpur about the reaction of Kashmiris to the Indian oppression revealed a lot. Kashmir, as he rightly pointed out, that Kashmir's own administrative service and police services have been decimated. NIA have the complete record of every banking transaction. It's this real fascism, and they have there's no political space for Kashmiris. That was the bottom line. And India is borrowing strategies from Israel. Mr. Bush's presentation was an eye-opener for us. Sister Bini Sharma's presentation on the modalities for bringing public opinion for the rights of Kashmiri people was very impressive. It was inspiring and electrifying, and one phrase that I must carry with me back home is that in these conditions, silence is violence. There's no moral scope for indifference in these times and in this situation. As it has been earlier said, that this month of October marks the completion of 74 years of the illegal occupation of Jammu and Kashmir since landing of forces there on 27 October 1947. No doubt it was the darkest day, as Dr. Bangash said, in the history of the region, as it led to very serious crimes against humanity and war crimes there. As all of us know, political analysts have warned time and again of the regional and global implications for the long protracted Jammu and Kashmir conflict. The threat to regional and global peace posed in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is real. It is not rhetoric, it is real threat. The nefarious agenda of changing the demographic structure of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir by settling non-native people in the disputed territory violates the United Nations Security Council resolutions and international law. The UN Security Council resolution has adopted 18 resolutions on the disputed status of Jammu and Kashmir. Even if there had been one resolution, even then any kind of change in demographic structure would have been illegal. The prolonged unresolved conflict of Kashmir poses the threat of humanitarian crisis and genocide. It is clear that the world cannot ignore the regional and global implications of the current deployment of over 900,000 occupation forces in IIOJK. The global peace and security in the 21st century is indivisible. The danger to peace and security in any part of the world, in any regions, threatens the whole world. The only solution lies in the implementation of United Nations Security Council resolutions. These resolutions established the self-determination as a governing principle of the lasting solution of the Kashmir dispute. In addition to the security dimension, I also want to focus today on the human rights situation in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, because while we are having conversation in Canada, Canada claims to have very good record on safeguarding human rights. And a few pieces of data. Since 1947, 400,000 innocent Kashmiris have been brutally massacred. Since 1989, more than 161,000 people have been subjected to the torture in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Since 2000, over 80 major fake encounters have been reported. 8,652 unmarked mass graves have been identified in 89 villages of Sis district of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. As all of us know, because of the rising wave of fascism in our neighboring country, 2014 proved to be a reference point in terms of enhancing oppression in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Since 2014, 3,850 women have been molested or raped, and 650 of women have been killed there. Since 2014, the use of pellet guns. Now, pellet guns were designed for animals, but those are being used in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and the use of pellet guns has resulted in the serious injuries to 15,500 Kashmiris, out of which 1,223 have been blinded and 120 got killed. Post 5 August 2019, the high-handedness of forces has translated into over 10,000 cordon and search operations, and more than 14,000 Kashmiris have been arrested. This shows also the strong will of Kashmiris. The siege imposed after 5 August 2019 has turned the territory into the world's most militarized zone and the largest prison on earth. A new so-called domicile law, which has already been commented upon, has been introduced in March 2020. It is aimed at altering the demography of Kashmir. For this purpose, 4.2 million domiciles have been issued till today in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Demographic transformation, as it has been highlighted, is aimed at turning Muslims into a minority and impacting the outcome of possible plebiscite or referendum in Kashmir. 6 draconian laws empower the occupation forces to declare anyone as a terrorist. According to Guardians, as it's a newspaper Guardian, the number of enforced disappearances in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir ranges between 8,000 and 10,000. More than 2,500 women whose husbands have disappeared are considered as half-widows. On 12 September 2021, Pakistan handed over a dossier to the United Nations. It contained details of 3,432 cases of war crimes committed in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Parliamentarians, journalists, humanitarian workers, international human rights organizations, and members of the international community have raised their voices on the gross human rights violations there. For the sake of besieged people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and for the sake of fairness, justice, and human dignity, it is imperative that the international community steps in immediately and backs its words of condemnation with practical steps that will make the occupying force to reverse the present course against the Kashmiri people. Pakistan will always be with its brothers and sisters in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. We will never accept, and neither will the Kashmiris, the illegal action and oppression of the Kashmiri people. Thank you very much.